Hi guys, welcome back to Show Up, Stand Out with me, Juliette Stapleton, your host and Visibility That Sells Strategist. And I want to introduce you today to a friend of mine, Nick Connor. And here's where I had a problem. I asked Nick, how do I introduce you? And are you a branding strategist? Are you a sales strategist? Are you just coach? And Nick said, well, I don't call myself anything. So Nick, welcome to the show.
Yes. It's good to be here. I've been excited about this. And yeah, let's talk about that, because you and I were just discussing before we got started how we can get stuck trying to answer those questions, fitting our who we are and what we do into 160 characters or less. And I mean, come on, these big personalities, your personality, my personality, likely the personalities of the people that are listening to this, it's tough to limit things down to 160, and there's a time and a place for that. But for me, I've just kind of gotten to where I'm at without having to do it. So that's a possibility as well. We can definitely talk about that.
I love that because this is what I've learned. Not everybody has a set identity. A lot of people have a lot of hats that they, wear depending on the situation, and they call themselves creatives or whichever way. But you could be someone who just can't deal with the fact that you're being put in a box. And so when you come up with a title, it feels more suffocating rather than satisfying. I went through this whole story as well. And even though I'm branding myself as a Visibility That Sells Strategist, but actually it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter what you call me. It doesn't matter what you call me by my name in a way, unless you don't shorten my name. Just never do that. But it's just something like, this is not what defines me. And I think that this what happens. So I'm glad we talked about it. I have students, I have clients who feel blocked by the need for the title. And I think that it's also a little bit of, it's a discourse. It's something that marketing gurus, and not just gurus, a lot of coaches, some coaches I respect, they teach that you have to have the title, that you have to have the name. So, yeah.
There's just a lot of factors that go into it. I just had a great testimonial. It's awesome to get testimonials in your business, and I'm sure that everybody listening knows that. But there was a word he used in there that really mattered to me, and that was integrity. So, that's, I think, the feeling that we want people to have when they interact with our brand. We want them to understand, who we are as much as what we do. And certainly we need to be clear about what we do. And that's a function of the marketing and all of the things that you are brilliant at teaching, but there's a lot more to us, and there's little things that we can do to express that. Like if you look behind me, I've got a picture of me playing baseball. That's a huge part of who I am. I've got, the watches that I love and the colognes that I love because I love those brands. And this is all a part of really who I am and what I do for people. So there's multiple ways to illustrate that stuff. You don't just have to do it in a fancy tagline. You just don't.
That's true. And you don't have to even sometimes necessarily talk about it straight up front. These are all little subliminal things that I'm so bad to attention to detail zero. So when I meet Nick on our calls, and we're friends, so we chat, I just look at Nick. I never look behind, except for the book that I'm currently reading. And it's a bestseller currently as well, called Brandability. And guys, I'm going to stick a link there to Amazon. Awesome. And you go and check it out, because it's a brilliant book, brilliantly written. And all these elements that you're mentioning that are behind you, they're all also in the book, in your story. It's part of who you are, as you just said. And It's brilliant. I love it. I'm just a bit embarrassed that I've never noticed this before.
Oh, it's okay.
Things happen.
It's okay.
I also have those things like the butterfly for transformation, my magic wands for things. And yeah.
It's actually your fault, all your fault, that I actually moved my desk into an angle. So, I do pay attention to these things. Aesthetics in branding, I believe, matter so much. As you know, Juliette, this is something I talk about in the book. And I noticed how cool your office looks because you have it on an angle. And so I moved my desk, and it's just really changed this new lifestyle that we're all living here in this digital world, where it just adds some depth to the videos. And I think it's just a really brilliant way of maximizing your at-home office space, which we all have to do now because of this crazy situation. So yeah, some people notice it, some people don't, but I think, that's something to be thinking about as well for your own, your own process. create the environment that you really do well in and you thrive in. And so these elements might not matter to some people. They certainly matter to me, and that allows me to be productive in the space I need to be productive. And so, yeah, yeah, it's cool. We're feeding off of each other every time we talk. I love it.
It's so true. And this is what, you know what, when you, I always have a pet hate for people who you connect on Facebook and they say, I'm just looking to connect to like-minded people. And I get really like, how do you think I'm like-minded? You don't know me. You haven't spoke to me. But we met, guys, one day I said to myself, I was just, planning my move to Estonia. And I said, I want to meet when I'm in Estonia, these people who speak English, who are just like me, like-minded. I'm looking for them. And that was the day when Nick sent me a friend request. And mind-blowing synchronicity. And we've been friends ever since. I just realized that my background is not all there, but I agree. I actually don't really care if people sometimes see what's behind me or not, but it makes me feel good. Yeah. And energized, because this is who I am, and I love it. So this is, I'm glad that we mentioned, because sometimes, by observing people and how you can influence each other, magic happens in your life too as well. You can bounce also. Hopefully, if you make any changes and you love your new backdrop, say in the comments, like, come back here to this video or to this podcast if you're listening, and tell us, or even post a screenshot, whatever, share, brag about it, and feel good.
Yeah, let's see some screenshots. That'd be really neat to see, because look, I think that this is going to matter more and more. Platforms are, YouTube, I know for sure, is paying for production value for their kind of their assets, right? The people out there that are using their platform, and so they're helping them up the experience through production value. And so more and more content continues to get better. There's more and more competition. And quite frankly, it is my personal belief that the aesthetics do matter. People are absolutely judging you. Now, listen, it's easy to get overwhelmed by that sometimes when you're putting yourself out there. And so maybe it's just good for us to remind them, Juliette, like, listen, in this business, in this world of branding, you're going to have people that don't like you. You're going to have people that don't like your stuff. You're going to have people that say things that you don't want to hear. But, like, we got to learn how to develop a bit of a thick skin, because your message matters. What you're doing matters. People need the skills and the talents and the abilities that you have. And so the more we can just embrace and accept the good and the bad with this business and deal with the reality of it as well, we're just going to be successful.
I love it. Actually, just this morning, I was listening to a training of my sales mentor, Adam Urbanski, and he said exactly the same thing. He was talking about conversations. He said, you have to be okay with being rejected. You have to be okay with somebody not liking you. And I thought, you know what? Yes, sometimes, obviously, somebody says something, and not always. Like, I can't say that it just rolls off like duck's back, and I don't care. Yeah, but most of the time, I'm kind of saying to myself, hang on a second, somebody feels like they express their opinion. That means they got triggered by me. First of all, anyone gets triggered, that's to do with them, not me. And secondly, that means I'm making it. I've made it. If I have a hater on my business page, I've made it, then I block them. So, you have to find this way of protecting yourself, but not like get into defensive mode, but get into, like, I go into my gesture mode, and I'm like, I'm going to take a screenshot. I'm going to post it on my personal profile. I'm going to blog this person, and then I'm going to make a mockery out of this whole situation. And that way I'm sort of counteracting this whole thing and getting myself out. Gladly, I don't have many haters. And I think that, it depends on where you are. Some cultures are more outspoken. Some cultures have people who just love the sound of their voice and they're loud and angry, and others don't. There's cultures that people don't even click like or comment ever because of their culture. So we just have to understand these things. But I think that you have to, nobody cares about your dreams more than you do. Not even your other half, not your children. Nobody cares, because your dreams are in your own head. So if you don't care in a way, and you keep doing your own thing, and you don't care what your other half really thinks about it, because you lovingly disagree, who cares about a hater that you don't know? That's my attitude.
Well said, and these are the decisions that we all have to make, in this type of business. And And look, it's across the board. I think almost everywhere, it's never as bad as we think it's going to be. You're absolutely right. There's not as many haters out there as we make up in our mind. There's very, very few that are audacious enough to do it. So get yourself out there, play a bigger game, create more.
Definitely. And this is what you're encouraging people to do, and entrepreneurs and people in corporate world. And this is what you're talking about in your book, Brandability, and which I absolutely love, because at the end of the day, brandability, visibility, seeing that bigger vision of what you can be, no matter what you do, even if you are in a career, not running your own business, it's always it's such a big process of growth and really embracing who you are and embracing yourself, being kind actually to yourself and saying, well, you know what, I deserve these big vision I have. Now I'm going to just step into it, so that's why I'm so passionate about saying, hey, show up, don't be hiding behind the logo. Don't be hiding and saying, I don't like the way I look on video, so I'm not going to do video.
Yeah.
And all those things, they're just keeping you so small, because they're complete, lies that you're saying to yourself. Because if you really didn't like the way you look, you wouldn't ever leave a room. You'd probably live in a dark box and the food would be, fed through a hole. That's so imagine that. And this is what you're basically saying. But I also see other people, and, I have a couple of clients here in Ireland who, now we're in this coronavirus situation. Ireland is in lockdown. All brick and mortar businesses are closed down, and these ladies own two boutiques, and they show up, they do videos every day, they turn, put on the clothes, and they've built so much just by choosing to show up. And I think that this is where you have to say, this is my business, I am my business, and it's now or never. I have to be, showing up. There's so many opportunities out there. I know you were talking, I want to bring the conversation back to you, Nick. I know that you were talking about, you have this great, like a system or 4 abilities that every entrepreneur must master. And maybe we'll just address it now as the natural progression from you should show up. And this is what you need to master.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good segue because, before we get into maybe a little bit of the tactical, and let's just talk about why your audience should care about kind of this 4 abilities framework. Number one, the greatest thing about what we do is as entrepreneurs, and then kind of shrinking down to whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe you're a coach or a speaker, or you have a, other business that you're running online, is that, this entrepreneur endeavor is the greatest vehicle for personal development. And I hope that everyone who's listening to this sees the value in that even if you're not making sales, when you show up, that says a lot about you. That says a lot about who you are. That's something to take pride in, to be proud of. And so this entrepreneurial endeavor is certainly about serving other people, but it's also a really good vehicle for us to be growing as humans, as people. And so the thing that really kind of sparked this idea of the 4 abilities was just my own personal experience. There was a period of time where I really wanted to help people. I was transitioning from professional sports, didn't know what I wanted to do, knew I wanted to help people, but didn't know how to turn it into a business. Saw people making money online. This is like pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook ads. I saw people doing it, but I didn't quite understand all the moving parts. And so I slowly but surely started to learn, and I had to start putting myself out there. I learned about YouTube, and, I decided I needed to create videos, and I had a bit of a hard time doing that. Through that process, I started to learn that there was a lot of personal growth that I needed to go through before I could ever help somebody else. And that required me taking responsibility for those areas of my life. And so responsibility is one of the 4 abilities, and we'll get into it in a minute. But, so often these frameworks we come up with really are grown and spawned from our own life experience. And so one of the things that I do with all of my clients is kind of take them through this process, because in order for us to get out there and play a bigger game, the only thing that's usually stopping us is ourselves, right? It's not technology. It's not our logo. It's not looking good on video. It's what's going on in here. And so we need to address that. And also for your clients, no matter what you sell, there is a great opportunity for you as a brand to help them work through some of that stuff, because that's usually going to allow them to use your products and services as well. So it's a great framework that it can apply to yourself and also your clients. So the first ability is possibility. And we look out at the world, and in your business, you think about all the different things you could be selling. You look at all the different things that you could be doing. And this world of possibility for some people is exciting. And for some people, it's overwhelming because it's very emotional, isn't it? It's very subjective. Well, I could do this, or I could sell this. I could, I could do video on Instagram, or I could do video on Facebook, or, so there's all these possibilities. And when we're in that place, the step that we really need to take is we need to make a decision. We have to make a decision. In order to get a different outcome, we have to do something different, right? In order to have what you've never had, you have to do something you've never done, I think is the quote. I don't know who came up with that.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, but it's so true. Okay. So we got to leave that world of possibility, and we got to look at, okay, what is it that is going to get me into a different outcome? Okay. And so the other part, I'm literally drawing a blank. I'm trying to stall because I'm drawing a blank on the other
of the next step.
Yeah, the next step.
Attainability.
Oh my goodness, thank you. So step 2 is attainability. So attaining a different result requires an action, a behavior. And this is more logical, okay? It's objective. What is the most obvious next step that we need to take with that decision that we just made, all right, about the possibility that we're deciding we're going to take action on? And when we can look at that next step and we can just say, okay, this will, or at least should, get me closer to the outcome that I want, to attaining the result that I want. And look, at that point, there could be multiple things that you could do, right? Let's say that somebody's considering, what are your people considering right now? What's one of the things maybe that they're asking you for help with?
Oh, I can actually, I think it's a great thing. While you're going through the system, I can share how this system completely applies to how I started my online visibility journey.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So,
okay.
yeah.
So when you decided, let's say you were looking at all the possibilities and you made a decision. What was that, the first decision?
Yeah. So the possibilities were, what can I teach on, or how can I get more clients online? And so many things. I'm like a jack of all trades, and I can do anything from, websites to Facebook marketing, anything. And I made a decision to focus on Facebook marketing. That was my very first decision. Mm-hmm. And then attainability, it was, what was the first thing I should do? And it's interesting because my first thing that, if I look back now, that I did that was significant, was to start a show. So Show Up, Stand Out, it was called then Easy Chats, and it was visibility, right? And I started a show. Love it.
Love it. It's a great example. And similar, another tangible example to bring up, when a lot of people think about writing a book in this kind of business that we're in. And for me, I never really wanted to write a book. It was something that I knew I could do, but just because you can doesn't mean you should, type of thing. So earlier in 2019, I knew that I was missing something. I didn't know what it was. Living in a different country, starting my business, getting my business really established with a new kind of product that I was offering, married, all kinds of different stuff. So I felt like I needed something to grab onto. So I took a personality profile test, which I firmly believe in. The one I used at the time was called Wealth Dynamics. It is a paid one. I don't benefit by throwing that out there in any way. It's just a great one. Anyway, that's the one I took. And one thing came out of that. All the possibilities narrowed down to one thing, and it was contribution. I needed more contribution in my life. So now I'm in that attainability world. In order for me to get more contribution in my life, I looked at all the many things that I could do from a logical standpoint, collaboration. I said contribution. I meant collaboration. Sorry. So I could start a podcast, and collaborate like we are right now. I could, set up a men's group, something that I've done in the past where I just, not for coaching purposes, just to connect with other men. I could, develop a new membership site and make it really, really inexpensive to get more people in that I want to be dealing with. There were all these possibilities, but then I really looked at it and I just said, what would be the most obvious next step? order to do some of those things, what could get the attention of some people? What would help me share who I am in a bigger way and be a foot in the door to connect with the type of people I want to connect with? And that's when I arrived at the book. And the book for me just made the most sense for everything else that I want to do. And so I picked the book. Okay. So, you know, that's where you want to get. You want to get from the emotions into the logic of it, look at all the things you can do logically, not emotionally, and then pick one. And that's what you did, Juliette. So
Yeah.
what was your next step? Because the next thing that we have to do is we've got to take responsibility, which is the third responsibility, for these choices we're making in our business. So you decided Facebook. And what was the next step for you? How did you have to take responsibility for that decision? What did you have to do next?
Well, if we're talking about the aspect of the show, and I always say that this was a deciding thing for positioning, for collaboration, for growing my audience, my responsibility from the early days was to commit to doing it regularly,
Yeah.
and I started with 2 every Tuesday and Wednesday, and I did it for a whole year live. Whereas nowadays I pre-record them, but I did them live, and I really committed to showing up this way, and being there and connecting to people. And that responsibility continues to this day, because I do have Without Fail a show coming out every week. And I've I think I've interviewed over 250 entrepreneurs at this stage. So this is something that was the step. And having that responsibility also made me responsible for other ways of showing up, as in just being active on Facebook myself, creating a group, building relationships with people within my group, within my audience. And that's how my business, then the online business, started happening, and the sales started happening through that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of another great kind of principle that really is effective in this work we do. It's that how you do anything is how you do everything. And, when you commit and take responsibility in one area, it has a tendency to trickle over into other important areas of this business. And you're so consistent. It's something that I admire about you, and I think is so cool, and an indication of where you're going. Because most people, even with the things they say they want, let's be honest, most people aren't taking responsibility for those things. Whether it's, hey, I want to be in better shape. I know that I need to be going to the gym or working out from home these days. But the question is, are you taking responsibility for that?
I
Are you
think it's
taking
important to
responsibility?
mention, though, because a lot of people just assume, when you're hiding and when you're making excuses, you just make excuses so they can say, well, Juliette is consistent. She's probably like this with everything. And no, not at all. So I made a decision. This is exactly what we were talking about. I had a possibility. I made a decision. I then decided to commit to the most important thing for my visibility and positioning, which was this show, because it would associate me with other amazing people that are in my audience. And I stuck to it so much. Now ask me if I go to the gym. I always talk about I need to start working out.
Yeah.
I even have a couple of kettlebells sitting there, but they're very dusty because I never pick them up. Because,
Yeah.
it's a decision. You don't just make one decision and all your life changes and you turn to this, robot that does everything. It's per a particular thing, area, whatever
Yes.
priority is. So it is about committing, and it's about prioritizing this. And this was more important than anything to me, because I had the bigger vision. And I wanted to share this because I just know how easily people sort of wave this, say that, yeah, but he's like this, she's like this. But we're
Yeah.
not. No, we're
It's a
talking about commitment here.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a great point that you make, because we for some people, what comes easy for you might not come easy for somebody else. And so self-awareness goes a long way, right? Having some self-awareness, and really, there was something else that you said there that made me think of a thought, and it has to do with, well, I don't know. It'll maybe come to me. But what we're saying really applies to the fourth ability here, and that is accountability. Because there's going to be some areas of your business, some areas of your life where you are 100% accountable to yourself. You don't need anybody else to hold you accountable to do those things. But there's going to be other areas of your life where maybe you do. And I think what's fair to say for everybody is that we don't wake up like asking for accountability. Most of us don't love accountability, and And so there's kind of two stages of accountability that I've found in certainly my own life, but also in the lives of, now I've worked with, over 400 clients one-on-one, and I've seen this come up a lot. The first is that you need accountability. And that is where, so someone who maybe needs accountability in let's say a coaching environment, and I'm sure, do some of your clients have coaching clients themselves?
Yes, yeah.
Your audience? Okay.
Yeah.
So we've all had those coaching clients that'll come to their coaching calls, and they'll really need us to hold them by the hand and kind of tell them what they need to do, right? Tell them, hey, this is your next step. This is what you need to do. Hey, these are your goals. So these are the type of clients that we need to remind them of their own goals, right? Which is fine. It's part of why we're working with them. But if you really look at your own life, okay, there might be some areas of your life where maybe you need somebody to remind you of what you said and communicated is important to you. Okay, so that's where we all get in certain areas of our life. For me, at this area of my life, I need somebody to hold me accountable to my finances. And so I pay somebody to do that. Say, hey, this is what you need to do. Okay, it's okay to be in that world. The other stage, and this is kind of a great place to be, it's an exciting place to be, is when you don't need accountability. It's when you want it. It's when you seek it. This is when you really start to get a good return on the investment that you make in your own coaches in your life. And, that's that client that comes to the call, they've taken action. They're kind of coming to you saying, hey, this is what I think we need to do next. Here's an idea. What do you think about this? They're very proactive. They're engaged. I mean, come on. If you had a full book of business with those clients, Julie, I mean, come on, for me, I mean, I would love it if all my clients were that way. But it's a journey. It's a spectrum.
Yeah. You have to be in the ready place. Sometimes in coaching, people come and they hire coaches for certain things. And sometimes it's just, they're not ready yet for that type of coaching, which they fully didn't understand. They really wanted it. And, the coach maybe also didn't seek very clearly until they started working together that the person is not actually internally ready, or maybe there's a little bit different coaching needs to be done. But that happens, and that's okay, because it is a journey. And that's why our best clients, they're always at that stage, like the second part of accountability. They're in that mind of taking action. They're ready and they want direction, because, and guys, right now the world has slowed down. We got stuck at home. My daughter is going through exams. She's in the third year of, the college. And she was complaining so much about the fact that she has to do it from home and how hard it is to force herself to study. And my daughter is probably, you will never meet a 19-year-old like her, because she is so self-driven. And yet, even for her, it's so hard because there is no routine, there is no attendance, there is just so many things, and she just felt so stressed. And I said to her, because everybody thinks that working from home is so great, working from home is very difficult. You have to hold yourself accountable. And I love that we're talking about this, because, especially holding yourself accountable, it's the hardest thing, because you can get away with anything with yourself. You don't have somebody there telling you, you need to do that. And we need to be accountable to someone as well as ourselves. We need that for taking action. I'm real action taker on the, people think, but it's so hard for me, because I work so much better when there's somebody who I will do it just so I'm not embarrassed sometimes, because if it was up to me, I would get away and my laziness would take over. And this is what happens. I'm glad this is an opportunity to transparently share about these things, how we deal with these things.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you're expecting that willpower is going to be the thing that gets you to do all that we need to do in business and in our lives and all the many responsibilities and all the stressors and all of that, willpower is just not powerful enough, and it's going to run out. And so everything that we're talking about is about a framework. What we're talking about with this 4 abilities. Why does it matter? Why do we come up with frameworks? Well, really, I believe frameworks are really powerful when we find the ones that we believe in, because it just gives us that structure for ourselves. When we can create our own structure and our own system to get us, back and centered, whatever that might be, those are useful things to have in our tool belt. And they're obviously great tools to be giving to our clients. People want to process. And I found that just when you, well, in everything that you do with your branding and your marketing, when you tell your story about where you've been, where you're headed, where you're at, or where you're at, then where you're headed, it's good to have a process to explain in there. And so for me, that 4 abilities is just one process that I can share in an environment like this, but it's really a framework for my own life, that when I'm feeling stressed out because of a change, I can lean on a principle like this. Another one for me, for example, is what I call silence, solitude, and stillness. And that's a daily practice. I don't meditate, but I have a daily practice: silence, solitude, and stillness. I just need to take a little bit of time every morning and separate myself from my computer, remove myself from all the ideas and creative stuff that I'm doing, 53 things all at once usually, and get silent, get still, and just be, and allow myself to feel. And believe me, I'm probably the farthest person from the kind of woo woo feel type stuff. I just like, this is critical for me. And it's been really a powerful process for a lot of my clients as well. So something to consider: silence, solitude, and stillness. 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever amount of minutes, just commit to some silence, solitude, and stillness every day. And it'll really help your creative process.
Thank you so much for sharing this ritual. I'm going to just add to it. It's exactly the same thing, just different framing, because some people, whichever way, guys, whichever you will resonate with. Every day at 11:11, and I love the number 11, and I am a bit woo-woo. At 11:11, an alarm rings, and it's alarm just, birds singing, some harp playing, I don't know, some tune I had, but it's nice. And the message that comes up on my alarm is slow down to accelerate. Mm-hmm. My spiritual mentor, who I consider my spiritual mentor, Elizabeth Peru, that's who I got this from. Slow down to accelerate. And first time when I came across this, I was like, what do you mean? Because I'm like, my speed is like, I'm a rocket girl. And yet when you slow down and you do go into that stillness, solitude, and what was the other S in your framework?
Silence, solitude,
silence.
stillness.
Yes,
yeah.
Silence. And you're just there. The reconnection that happens with your heart, your mind, and the world around you is amazing. So I take a minute or two and just enjoy this. And this is something that helps someone who is with a very active brain like mine really, really slow down. And it's brilliant daily practice. So I just wanted to share, because it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah. And I love it. And the more you listen to, successful and intentional people, you'll hear these little things, come out, and everybody's got kind of their own thing that works for them. But it's, these are great questions to ask yourself, right? If you hear it coming from the people that you're listening to, it's one thing to know it, but really, are you doing it? And that's that journey, right? That's that journey to get to that point of taking responsibility and being accountable for what it is you want to see in your life. And, success leaves clues. Everybody says that, but man, is it true? Man, is it true?
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And it's kind of a perfect wrap up to our conversation today. Nick, thank you so much for being a lovely guest, great friend. I really enjoy seeing you every time. I hope to have you back on the show sometime soon in the future. And we probably will be doing it from the same room, which will be very exciting at that
will be
point.
awesome. Yep.
Because I'm moving where Nick is now yep. Soon. So yes, guys, if you have any questions for Nick, please pop them in the comments. Remember about those screenshots of your backdrop. We just want to connect. You see where you're at. Nick, before you go, where are you leaving us? What do you have for us? Is it going to be the book, or you have anything else?
Well, I was thinking about this coming in, and I'm doing several things online right now with the book. There's, if you go to Amazon, Brandability book, and you'll find the book there. But I do have some bonuses and some free stuff that I give away with the book. And, there's so much crossover with what you and I do that I'm sure that you're helping them with very similar things. But if they go to brandabilitybook.com, there's some resources there. And if anything there resonates with you, there's several free resources on that page, and you can certainly dive in. And, more than anything, I love to stay in touch with people on social media. And I know everybody's on Facebook, but if any of you guys are on Instagram, that's a great place to stay in touch with me, just in general. And it's just at Nick Connor, Connor on Instagram. And yeah, I mean, if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to get them some answers. But one thing that might be easy for them to get access to stuff, because I don't have just a page that they can opt into or anything like that to get free material. Maybe I can give you some of the bonus stuff, and we can get it to them that way. So if anybody's
Yeah.
interested in anything that they see of my stuff, then we'll get it to you one way or another.
Perfect. Yeah, just contact us. Whatever link we'll come up with will be in the description of this video or show notes for the podcast. Nick, thank you so much again for being a great guest and really sharing. I thought our conversation, it took a complete different turn probably from what we originally thought, and then it came back to what we originally planned. And I love this because, at the end of the day, it's all about showing up as who you are. And I think you're definitely opened up to the audience. And guys, you should buy that book, Brandability, because if you resonated with Nick, if you liked the sound of his voice and everything, the book is like literally hearing him talking about his life a little bit, and there's so much tactics and so much. And even me, I teach branding as well. I am reading this and seeing something from a different perspective. Even if you know these things already, even if you may be working with me even, and I'm teaching similar things, it's always going to add to that bigger picture, and something can click and something can really make sense. And so there is never the end of information about, like if you think that I already know that, that's a wrong attitude to have in life, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just one last thought, this is a real profession. Okay. What we're doing, being thought leaders, experts in your field, service providers like we are, this is a real industry and a real profession. And I think that people forget about that sometimes. And we are here to support each other as professionals. We're not in competition. We do similar things. And, the more we can look at it that way, the more we can collaborate, and the more that we can just get these positive messages out there, the more we're going to inspire other people to do the same. And so, yeah, there's never any competition. It is all love and
They can't be, because
game.
we're showing up as a personal brand. Personal brand is who you are. You are so unique. There is no competition. Nobody can be you. And therefore,
Right.
Collaboration becomes the key word. And competition, you don't even need to worry about it.
That's right.
Honestly,
That's right.
honestly.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
It was absolutely brilliant. Guys, I will see you next week on another episode of Show Up, Stand Out. I'm looking forward to your comments. Please share this episode. I thought it was so much value, and a lot of people and business owners, entrepreneurs will benefit from listening to our conversation today. Thanks again, and see you next week. Bye.
Take care. See you.